Thank you for joining us on Perspectives with Osama Silva. And Osama, today, a very interesting guest that you're about to introduce, and then he'll tell us about some of his life experiences. But we are in for some open words, some open word poetry coming up.
Yes, we are.
That's a first.
So I'd like to thank and welcome Ahmed Beshir, who is a current WPI student with us here today. And he will be sharing with us a little bit about his experiences because he's lived in many different interesting areas, locally and internationally. So Ahmed, thank you for coming. And do you want to just give a little bit of an introduction to yourself, where you've lived, and how did you find yourself at WPI?
Thank you for having me. So I guess to start the journey, I was born in Saudi Arabia. And I lived there for 5 years, and my dad was working there. And then in 2003, my dad came to the States to continue studying. He came and continued studying in Pennsylvania. And then my mom and my siblings and I went to Sudan and lived there for 2 years. And I'm originally from Sudan, and so we lived in Sudan for 2 years, and then in 2005, I was 7 years old. We came here and joined up with my dad in Philadelphia, and we lived in Philly for 4 years.
It sounds like a Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
It's very, yeah.
Well, I was from Northeast Philly, and then he was from West Philly. But yeah, so then we moved to.
I guess he had heard that before. So.
Exactly.
We moved to Maine in 2009, and we've been living in Maine ever since. And I guess now I'm going to school in Worcester.
Here in Worcester. Now, in Maine, where do you live in Maine?
Gorham, Maine. It's southern Maine. I went to boarding school in northern Maine, Limestone, Maine. It's like 5 hours from where I lived in southern Maine. So like Maine is not very wide, but it's very long.
Yes.
Yeah.
And where I went to school, Limestone, it was a bunch of potato fields. We could see the border. We could see Canada from our school. It was only like 2 miles away.
Oh, wow.
And that's why I asked, because that's what I was thinking. It's not just that, Saudi Arabia, half a world away, and Philadelphia. It's really very different places. The city to really the rural countryside to now to Worcester. I mean, these are some very different types of places.
It's not just the climate, it's also the culture.
Yeah,
Talk
right.
about very different culture. What's your take on it?
I think it shows you how neat the human experience is. Because it's like as human beings, like this day was experienced by like 7 billion different people. It was experienced differently, To someone who might be living in Limestone, they probably have snow up there now, and it's probably freezing. And to someone from like Saudi Arabia, where I was born, it's probably like a really hot day, or they're just going about their daily lives. I mean, my mom and my sisters right now, they're in Sudan for a year, and so they're visiting family because it's their first time going back in 12 years. And so it's very neat comparing. Like I get a lot of pictures from like my sisters and my mom about their daily lives. And the thing is, they're 7 hours ahead, so like a lot of times it'll be like early morning for them, and it'll be like later. It'll be at night for me. So I'll be going to bed, and then my sister will send me pictures. And my oldest sister, Amna, she's volunteering at a local school. And she's teaching English there, and it's like a K-6 school. And I think one thing that's really been that showed me the highlight of difference between cultures is how schooling is done. And I've taken a lot of fascination with school. I think schooling has a really big impact on our experience, especially as children. We don't really think about it, we forget over time, but thinking back to it, I took a class at WPI called School Psychology last term, and our teacher talked about different school systems. I mean, it's so different between going to school in Philly, and so the third biggest school district, and going to school in rural Maine. I went from having 30 kids in my class to having 7 other kids in my class. And I think schooling, in a way, and it's really neat to think back to, but schooling is what's kind of highlighted the differences, in a way, between going to school in Sudan, going to school in Philly, and then going to school.
What are some of the differences?
Just culture. To some of my friends in Maine, they could never imagine what it'd be like to go to school and to go to school in Philly, and my friends in Philly wouldn't know what it's like to go to school in Sudan. I mean, and the different struggles that kids face at schools. Like, for example, like there are different types of challenges that kids in Philly would go through. Like maybe their socioeconomic problems that then shape the kids' lives and how they experience school. In Sudan, since like school is not very, so there's a lot more kids going to school, their problems are they're different. And it kind of just shows you like the one thing that seems to be underlying the human experience is that there's different types of struggles, but struggle is common between everyone.
I talk about perspectives.
Yeah,
that's
talk
really,
about
that's
that.
really fascinating.
My curiosity is that you just said there's different types of struggles, and in Sudan, not a lot of kids get to go to school. So since you saw that and you were privileged to go, did that give you more of a higher appreciation of school versus maybe kids growing up here who sometimes take school for granted?
Definitely. My dad, you know, when we were younger, he used to tell us, you know, when we used to go to school, we used to have to, like, he used to study under the street lights. And then they used to use like cement bags to write on. And it's like, you know, it's fascinating in a way that, you know, like, and so like, you know, like there's this whole joke about how like an older generation would say, I used to walk 10 miles uphill, 10 miles like uphill both ways to school. And it's like, you know, and it's just, I think it's fascinating that the struggles, you know, it gives you an appreciation, going to school in Sudan and seeing what it's like. And I think that's one of the purposes of my family going back to Sudan, is to sort of then gain this appreciation and new perspective on what life is like. Because living here in the States, you know, we're very, very privileged. Right. We take a lot of things that we have for granted. But you know, seeing other people struggle will put your own life into perspective and let you appreciate what you have, and then therefore allow you to sort of give back in a way.
How have all of these experiences then influenced the work that you're doing with the open word, with the poetry?
I don't know, I think personally I feel like writing and speech is divine in a way. The art of writing and the art of speech, because it's like, it's the manifestation of our consciousness. It's like it's how we know we're alive, and we express we express our humanity in a way. We express the fact that we're alive through these emotions and feelings and different experiences. And I think words are just a manifestation of that. And so it was my first gig, I'll call it, was we were watching, it was 2008, and the Phillies were about to win the World Series. And so my family never really watched baseball, but like this was huge, because this was crazy. Like the Phillies are about to, like, they had a curse going on, and they're about to break the curse and win the World Series, and you know, and everyone's going crazy. Everyone at school is talking about it. So at home, you know, we're watching like the game, and we had no idea like the different numbers meant, like the strikeout, the pitch count, nothing. And so like my dad would ask us like, hey, what does this mean? And then like we would just make up an answer, like act like we know what we're talking about. But that night that they won, I came up with a song. It was like a really short song. And it went like, I'm a Phillies fan, I'm a Phillies fan. I have a Howard shirt, he swings bam, bam, bam. He hits it far and wide, he runs with a slide. Home run, look at the crowd and all the fun. Guess what? The Phillies just won, the Phillies just won. And I was in 5th grade at the time. And when I went to school, I shared it with my teacher, and everyone was super excited. We thought we were going to get the day off, but we didn't. And so everyone was super, like, I shared it with my teacher, and she made me go say it over the loudspeaker, like, in announcements, and, like, the whole school, like, heard my voice, and I, like, felt like I was on top of the world. And then when I came back, she had me write it on a poster, and then she put it outside her door. And so, like, that was in 5th grade. And to me, I was talking to my brother earlier, and we were talking about, like my whole, like, I was telling him about how, like, you know, how I'm going to be here, like, for my poetry and stuff. And then we were talking about, like, when I peaked, and I told him, like, I think I peaked, like, freshman year, you know, when I performed, like, at a talent show. But he was like, no, you peaked in 5th grade.
Yeah,
you know, that was your best
first
piece.
one when it came out, that raw emotion. Well, yeah, I just wanted, because you had talked about the fact, you know, that writing and then, you know, when it starts to flow, are those two separate things? So I mean, you don't write. How often does it just come out like the Phillies just won, and boom, it just kind of flowed for you. And how often do you sort of sit down and say, okay, I'm going to think about it, I'm going to get just the right words, and then this is the way that I'm going to perform it. And it seems like to me that it would be two different disciplines.
It is. I think sometimes I'll have a line that will just hit me, and then I'll build around that. And then sometimes I'll have, like the first serious piece I ever performed was called Dish Soap, and I performed it at our MSA dinner a year ago. Not this one, but like my freshman year. And
which is when I think I heard you.
Yeah. And that one, so the way I came up with that one was, so I was talking to, I get an email from our president asking me like what the title of my piece is, and I don't like being rushed. Like, you know, I'm like it's gonna hit me when it hits me. I'm just gonna perform a piece. That's all you need to know. But he's asking for a title, right? And so I was sitting like at my desk, and my roommate like had his closet, and at the top of the closet he had like a bottle of like Dawn dish soap. And so then I was like, all right, I'll just call it dish soap because it's the first thing I saw. And so then so I was like, okay. So when I started writing, I called it dish soap, and I had things in my mind that I wanted to talk about. And then I bridged from dish soap, bridged it into things that I wanted to say, things that I wanted to share, that I felt like compelled to share. And in a way, it kind of shows you how we take these things and sort of put meaning and metaphors into these things, you know, these things around us. And to me, that was dish soap. And so after that, that's how I wrote my first piece. And it is a very different discipline, like you said.
Well, there also it seems as if there would be this pressure that, so sometimes, right, I mean, it just comes to you in the moment, or you seem to be confident in your ability, so you know that it's going to come, that the creative process will hit you at some point. And yet here was where, no, I need you to be creative now, and I need you to come up with something now, and I need you to tell me what it is now, because there's somebody who, I don't know, you know, that's not their artistic form of expression. Their artistic form of expression is, I need everything to be lined up and ready to go. So that's just that's really fascinating to me. When do we get?
Time.
Yeah, I was going to say, when do we get to the part where we get to hear?
We'd like to hear, what
something.
you have for us today.
Yeah. So the only. So we
is this
had
going to be dish soap?
Huh?
Is this going to be dish
yeah,
soap?
this is
No,
dish
huh.
soap.
Okay, so we're going to have to now
Oh,
connect.
I like that.
Yeah.
Now we know the backstory
Yes.
of how this came about. Because we'd be thinking of all these deep ways that he came about. How did he ever
Well, I'm
come
just
up-
happy he looked
come
at
up with
dish
that?
soap. I would have been
Right.
curious if
If
you
it
looked
is
at
something
anything else.
then we'd be having with a
You know,
different
a
title.
piece of gum on the floor.
Yeah.
So I told my friends that I was debuting tonight, and then one of them was like, "What are you talking about?" And then they're like, "Link us," and they're like, "I think he's living on another plane of existence right now."
TV debut on Perspectives.
on
with
Perspectives.
Osama Silva.
So when you become famous with your jingles and your open word, you have to remember
Say,
us.
that's right. I remember when. I remember my first interview.
All right. So yeah, I got it right here. Okay. Dish soap. Dish soap, detergent for doing the dirty dishes. Dish and soap, wish and hope for a better state. Scrub the plate, clean the hearts, wash the world. Smell the serene scent of boys and girls playing. Playing with kids is fun because, well, once we're done, I'll always have one. I'm the fastest, quickest, skillest, smartest, I'm the illest. They treat me like a superstar. They all want me on their team. And I admit it, it makes me feel special. After every game, I'll be given a medal just to prove these kids aren't on my level. Here at WPI, I'm in a club called Explore Dreams, where for 2 hours a week, I just play with kids. For the first time, my first time, I met a kid from Afghanistan. He came up to me, said, "What's up, man?" He said, "Where are you from?" I said, "Sudan," and then asked if I'm Muslim, said, "Yes, I am." He shook my hand and said, "Well, assalamu alaikum, man." What is the state of kids today when they go out and play? Not just kids here, not just your brothers and sisters, but those other kids with nothing left to lose. You see them on the news with millions of views, countless kids across continents. Let's talk about something else. Donald Trump, 45th president selected, something unexpected, blowing up texts, tweets, and messages. People, relax. Don't panic. Don't cross back over the Atlantic. Remain calm. Smile at your mom, your dad too. Not bad news, just advice from me and yous. Don't believe everything that's reported. We're not getting deported. Then again, there is good for the believers in every situation. So look at it this way. We're going on a vacation. We're getting free tickets to go back home and see our families again, our relatives, our neighbors, our aunties and our uncles, our cousins and our grandparents, people whom we seem to have lost. At what cost? Having lived in 3 continents, lived in more houses and gone to more school than fingers on my hands, you learn to find family wherever you go. Little did you know you belong to the biggest family on earth, from birth, from the start of time until the end, so many friends simply because we're Muslims. Yes, Muslims, not Muslims. The S is soft as it slips from the lips, switch the flip, get a grip, chomping on some chips and dip. Seriously though, this connection is deeper than the kin and closer than the kin. So to the rest of my family, I'm sorry I forgot you. I'm sorry I forgot your names. Sometimes I remember, not your names, but that you exist. I see your state and I feel guilty. You can't spell guilty without I. You can't spell hypocrite without I. Is it really our responsibility, I ask? Through daily tasks, we wear a mask. Late at night, we still play, forgetting who we were just yesterday. And every night, we sleep late. And sleep through Fajr, the dawn prayer. Then pray hours later and pray to the Creator about our state today, the state of Muslims today. Only to forget it was once said, Allah will not change the condition of a people until they change what is in themselves. A verse from a book collecting dust on our shelves. Pick up the book, dust it off, open it, read it, reflect, reconsider, rediscover, repent, rejoice, reread, put it back. 1. Pick up the book. 2. Dust it off. 3. Open it. 4. Read it. 5. Reflect, reconsider, rediscover, repent, rejoice, reread. 6. Put it back. Actually, before you put it back, clean the shelf. You can use this soap, actually. Use it to clean shelves, scrub dishes, and purify the hearts. Clean your own dishes, and your families too. From Damascus to Timbuktu, remember yourself, who you are, a superstar, a humble hero. Be yourself. Be like Aiden, that cool kid I met from Afghan. Be like my sister Fatma. She's 7 years old. She loves to do the dishes. Big buoyant bubbles bounce in the air, and in the smell of soap, I sense the scent of hope.
That was pretty cool.
That was very good.
That was great. Now, once you started, did it just flow? I mean, how many revisions are there to put something like that together to kind of bring it back to the dish soap at the end, make it all tie in?
It just flows.
That's it, yeah. Once you get started.
Once you get started, and sometimes like I don't try to force anything that I don't feel comes naturally. And so sometimes I'll take a break from it and then just come back to it later when something hits me or it clicks.
So tell me again about where you performed that, what the event was.
It was the Muslim Students Association Eid dinner. It was the start of it was an Eid term last year, so it was like last September, I think.
And what was the reaction?
Like a lot of them, like people came up to me and said, I loved your piece and everything, and it kind of felt like, yes, I love the attention, but it's also like it felt in a way, not that ingenuates isn't a word, but in a way kind of like, it was like, thank you, like I'm glad it made you feel that way. But it was kind of just like, it kind of rubbed off as whatever. But the one response that I remember now, that I remember the most, is this kid came up to me, and he's a grad student, and then he told me he loved the part about the kid from Afghanistan, and he loved that I talked about that because he was from there too.
Right.
And later on, it was a couple months later, I met the kid again, and we started going to Jummah, the Friday prayer together. But to me, that was I guess what I wanted people to take out of it, is that the humanity piece of it. That yes, this is an experience that I had with a little kid, but see, a little kid from that grew up his whole life in Worcester, but see how in a way that connects me or connects us to a grad student who came from Afghanistan.
I think he felt heard. I think that's really what the message is.
Well,
he felt heard.
And that's what I was thinking. I mean, in that, because there's a lot there. Different people take something different out. So somebody, their ears prick up when they hear Trump, right? Oh, it's political. Somebody else takes out Aiden, this young man, and gets that part out of it. I don't know. I was kind of struck by the part when you were bringing it back together, and it's your sister, and she
Right.
likes to do dishes. I mean, so everybody's going to find something different in there that maybe they gravitate towards and get. I mean, 10 people can hear it. You might get 10 people who get 10 different messages. Is that fair, or everybody should be kind of tuned into your wavelength and getting one message out of it?
I think that's the beauty with like just life or just the things we produce. Like when we're reading a book, like in English, this used to be one of my pet peeves where we're discussing a book and then somebody will like, and our teacher will be interpreting like what the author says, and then somebody will draw it to like, oh, it's this metaphor for something else. And then somebody will like pull something completely like random, and that I personally think is in no way connected to like what the author is trying to say. And then, but then over time, like I realized that this is like, and I think I said this earlier, like this is like we find meanings and metaphors in different things around us, and I guess writing and poetry is no exception to that.
Has your family heard this particular one?
No, they haven't.
They have not heard it. So this will be their first time when you
Yeah.
share it with them.
What's
Okay.
their reaction in general with some of your pieces? Are there?
That was the first piece that was the first serious piece I've ever seen, where I sat down and I was like, let me write what I really feel. So I've done poetry before at my boarding school. I went to high school. We had every Tuesday we had announcements. And so it was advisory. Everyone would sit and eat with their advisory. And then the whole school would eat together, so everyone's there. And then you get up, and then if there's announcements, they do them like at the end of the lunch. And there was one time where I lost my bag, and I couldn't find it. So I sent out a mass email to everybody, like alumni, parents, everyone, asking like, and it was a little extra, but like, you can't help but be a little extra. And so like I sent it out to everyone, and then I was like, prize included if you find my bag. And then I was working at the admissions office, and this lady was the assistant like admissions lady. And she was, her name is Mrs. Deshane. So I walk into her office. She calls me into her office. I come in, and then she's like, look over there. And I look, and there's my bag. And I'm super excited. There's my stuff again. And the whole time when I lost my bag, I was like, just like wheeling around this like suitcase with like wheels on it, because it's the only thing I had. But so when she found it, I said thank you and everything. But then I remembered like in my email, I said I'll put a prize in there. And so then when I get my bag, I'm thinking like, how am I gonna ever thank her, And like giving people stuff, I don't think that's like, I think that's too cliche. Like thank you card, that's too cliche. So I was like, I'll just write her like a piece and perform it. And so I wrote her a piece, and then that Tuesday, like I went up and I like said it like in front of the whole school, and I played this whole thing about like this supernatural, like metaphysical connection and attachment to my bag, and how when I lost that, I felt so empty inside. And then Miss Deshane found it, and like she brought me back, put that piece in my heart again. And I remember like everyone's like it was humorous, people liked it. And then like when she came up to me, like she thanked me, and it was a lot more personal. And like, that was the first piece I performed. And then afterwards, I was like, okay, this Tuesday announcement thing, this could be like my gig. Like, and so then when people had birthdays, I'd go up, like do a little poem about them, and then like sing them like a collective happy birthday. And so that's like when I started like performing. That's what
My birthday's coming up, by the way.
Oh, really?
Well, I was just thinking, I mean, we only have really a few minutes. I mean, are you
Yeah.
ready to go free form now on your perspectives, experience? Is it too new? Or you can just, I mean, is there something that's about to strike you right
this
now
show,
that you
would
could
you
just
be able to do just a couple
right-
of seconds of
right now?
of what your perspective of the show?
Oh,
Right
my
now, this
perspective on
experience.
Perspectives
Yes.
with
Okay.
Asima Silva, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. No, like, you want me to talk about the show?
No. Oh, no.
No,
I
no.
want open word poetry right now to rival what happened when you were feeling that and it struck you about the Philadelphia Phillies winning the World Series. No, is that too much pressure?
Wait, so you're asking me to perform a piece about the show.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's, yeah.
Yeah,
yes.
that's
that
pretty
we will
much what
then
Hank
use
is
in all of
asking.
our in all of our promos. Yes.
Yes.
From now on, yeah.
All right. Just what's your favorite things about perspectives? Let me turn this on you guys. What do you guys like about perspectives?
Well, this so far is my favorite. I have
I
to
always
say.
ask him after every show, so which is your favorite?
And now I can say this. This is my favorite.
Okay.
I think this is great. I'm really enjoying this.
Okay.
So yeah. So to be serious. So my favorite part is meeting all of the different people, and it's people that I would never have the opportunity to meet. You talked about it in the beginning when you first sat down. You and I never would have run into each other. We don't. I'm doubting that we go to the same clubs, to listen to the same music, to go out to the same places at night, and yet here we are. I got to meet you, and that's what I love about perspectives.
And what's your favorite bit about it?
My favorite is giving people a voice. Yeah, shedding perspectives and stories on the stuff that people won't actually hear. Unfortunately, our mainstream media does not cover what I feel is as important that most Americans should know or be aware of.
Okay. That was just to buy me some time.
I was gonna say,
That's okay.
You've got yourself sit down to the fact that you only have 1 minute left
Yes.
in the show.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Okay. So host number 1 and host number 2 interviewing me on my debut. Now, perspectives. People come here and get really reflective. You try to learn new perspectives on the world. You interview different boys and girls. Because we're all kids at heart, we just forget that because we're not at the start anymore. I have so many chores that I need to do, but I had to come here and do my debut. So perspectives, the world I see, like what's the difference between you and me, Hank, Asima, Ahmed, Beshir, and we all turn to the crowd and they all go and cheer.
Excellent, excellent,
That
excellent.
was fantastic, and it brings us
Fantastic.
right up to the moment where now we get your perspective.
With my perspective of this show, as Hank said, is one of the more fun shows that I've done. And before anything, thank you for joining us, and thank you for that last piece. But I just wanted to take a second out. Kudos to that teacher, your 5th grade teacher that really encouraged you and saw a talent in you that I think is going to go much, much further. And I hope success in your life. I think more or less that if Ahmed Beshir goes forward, I think more or less he's going to be known for his open word and jingles rather than his graduation from WPI. So he may be an engineer, but I think he has another talent that we'll see in the future. Thank you for joining us, and I hope you join us again.